have Ryan Moresby-White. He is a speaker, a business owner, a personal development coach, helping high achieving men into their healthy masculine, uncovering their purpose, and building conscious relationships. Ryan's mission is to help and inspire men to embody the conscious masculine so they can go out there and create the most meaningful life possible and show up for themselves, and they can show up for the people in their life. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be able to be on here and sharing my message, my purpose, and what I'm most deeply passionate about with you. So thank you.
Yeah. So, how was your journey? Like, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into this work?
Yeah, for sure. So, um, firstly, I was born in South Africa. I was raised in Australia, so we moved to Australia. So South African parents. I went to school here in Australia, and things I would say really kicked off for me within the work that I do now. That's really going to lead into my story and journey for where I am now. Is when I was 17 years old, I decided to drop out of school. So I left school early and started my career as a builder. And I always knew that I always wanted to create something for myself, for my life, and to create some sort of impact and build a life of freedom. But I always really wanted to help people, but I didn't really know how to. At school, I was told that you're not going to be really good at much apart from working with your hands. So that's what I went and did. I went and got to the construction industry, and the only way I knew how to create some sort of success or that life for myself was working physically hard. So um, I left school early. A big driver behind that was following in the footsteps of my dad. And this then very much leads into why I do what I do, because, I had quite a strong father wound that was a big driver for me in a lot of things that I did. And it was one of my greatest pain points. But I went and built a career in the construction industry and built my own business. And I was 21 years old, making up to sometimes $15,000 a week. So my business was doing well at a young age. And um, yet I was living a life that was so unaligned to who I am at my core and who I am and what I really wanted to be doing in my life. Uh, for the longest time, from the age of 4 or 5 years old, I, you know, decided that I needed to be a certain way in order to be loved. So I would do anything I needed to do in order to be loved and accepted and receive approval, especially from my dad. And I know this is very true for a lot of men. And unconsciously, they build this life based on this little boy still trying to seek approval from their father unconsciously. And this was me until about 21 years old, when it got to the point where I was living a life that was so unaligned and incongruent with who I am at my core that it was just so unfulfilling, even though it looked like I was doing well. While I was doing that, I was also competing as an athlete as well. So there was lots going on. And it got to the point where I became so unfulfilled, so depressed, so unhappy. I, for a period of time, considered it'd be a lot easier to just leave this world than it would be to stay here. So for months on end, I was depressed. I was suicidal. I was burning through relationships. I was using women as a distraction, addicted to scrolling social media. I was smashing myself in the gym every single day to punish myself and as an escape to feel some sort of something within myself, right? Spending money to fill the void of unfulfillment that I had. And it really took for me to step out of the picture, to take a look at the picture that I had created. And once I had done that, I could see what I'd created. And I made a decision that I will never not put my happiness first. And little did I know that was me actually listening to my heart for the first time. And by doing that, I was like, cool, all right, well, what does that look like? So I decided to go after what my heart actually wanted. So this is my journey of slowly living a life that's more aligned to who I am at my core. And I'll speak more about soon about what I mean by what it means to live from your core as well. But this is what the journey started to look like for me. And I always wanted to help people and serve and create impact in the world. And I always wanted to do that by helping people. So to begin with, it was working with with athletes and business owners in the gym. So working with them physically. So I was a personal trainer and I worked with a lot of athletes and business owners. And I just knew it was a stepping stone to the true impact that I really want to create with people. And, coming from that background of being in the construction industry, being an athlete, being in a very masculine dominant world and not knowing who I am, losing touch with my core, it became a very big pain point of mine. And the more I went in within myself, the more I did the deep inner healing with myself, the more I started to uncover what was really there, my true self. And the more I've done that, the more it's my purpose has become more clear. And that's to really help men embody the healthy masculine energy so they can show up for the leaders, for themselves, for their families, and for the people that they serve. And by doing that, really being able to live a life of freedom and creating a safe space for the women in the world to feel safe and held by masculine men. Because there's so many women out, majority of women I know, and it's a hard truth, but majority of women feel so unsafe walking around in the world today. And it's creating a safe space for the feminine to actually rise. And it takes for the masculine to rise to hold that safe space for the feminine to also rise as well. As the feminine is one of the most powerful source of energy there is, and men need to step up for us to all be able to work together. So that's very much my purpose that's been revealed, and now I work with men and women all over the world, through this exact thing and really helping them awaken their true power and potential and create a life that's truly meaningful for them. And so that's what life looks like now, but it wasn't always that way. And it took for me to, overcome a lot of adversity and actually listening to my heart and, doing a lot of deep inner healing and work within myself and also on a business standpoint as well. My income has just been also a byproduct of the impact that I'm now creating. And on that sense, I know because a lot of men are very, very money driven, very success driven, status driven. The more healing I've done on myself, the more money I've made. The more healing I've done on myself, the more opportunities have come to me. The more healing I've done on myself, the more I've been magnetic to certain people, experiences, or things coming into my world. So now I live a life where I make way more than I used to when I ran my construction business, and I have a life of freedom where I get to do it with the most incredible people. Get to be here on what is it? It's I don't even know what day it is. It's a Wednesday or Thursday. and
Wednesday.
it's a Wednesday, yeah. And we get to this podcast, and it's like an absolute life by design. And I share that because that's what's possible through. I know that's very enticing for men to hear that, because healing can be very, for a lot of men coming into this work, can be very, very much like, why would I do that? Why would I journal? Why would I do this deep inner healing? And it's like, because what's actually available on the other side that most men are actually chasing and working so hard towards. So I just wanted to share that as well. So that's a bit about my journey and my background and my story. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And you talk about listening to your heart. And what do you mean? What does listening to your heart mean to you? And how did that come about to listen to what's going on in here?
Mm. Yeah, it's getting quiet enough to get out of the head, get out of the mind, the egoic mind that's just trying to keep us safe, right? That the mind that's been programmed and conditioned based on certain belief systems, based on society, based on your parents, based on the trauma that you've experienced. It's getting out of that, bypassing that, getting into the body. And the more that I've been able to become quiet enough to listen to what's within my body, all the answers have been there for me. And for someone that's like, what do you mean by listening to your heart? It's like, we've all had that inner knowing before. We've all had that inner knowing that we've listened to, we've taken action on, and therefore it's opened up a doorway of opportunity. And then we've gone down that path. And then if we connect the dots going backwards, we can then see that it only must have been guidance of some sort. And I, on a more of a spiritual, I guess, definition of what I feel it means to listen to your heart is listening to the closest thing that we have to pure consciousness, which is our heart. And it was the very first thing that was developed in the womb. It's the most intelligent thing, and it's also the most magnetic thing as well, right? When we look at like the power of manifestation, the heart is 5,000 times more magnetic than the brain. The heart is what draws in the experiences, draws in the opportunities, draws in the wealth, the money, the people, the dream partner. And that's because it's the powerhouse. And I know when men cultivate a relationship with their heart, they get out of their head. And as I said, the ego is very much designed to keep us safe and alive, not happy and fulfilled. Right? It has one objective, safe and alive. And the more we can get out of that and live from a place of truth, we get to live at a higher vibrational frequency, a higher level of consciousness, and experience a greater level and depth of life. So yeah, there's layers and depth to what I feel it means to listen to your heart. But to bring it back to someone who's listening to this that's potentially early on in their journey, it's listening to that inner knowing, that inner voice that's there. And normally, sometimes it's the voice that you don't want to actually hear because it goes against the ego and what the ego wants, because the ego is just trying to keep you safe. So basically, getting out of your head and getting into your heart is moving from fear into courage, acceptance, and love. Yeah.
I love that because when you mentioned listening to your heart, I remember when I was, I think, 20 years old, like 20, 21 years old, is when I had to really go within myself and listen to my heart. I was torn by two guys. I had a choice of which one am I going to date, right? Which one I'm going to be with. And I did not know which boy to choose. And I really had to dig in and listen to the heart. And for me, it was, you know, give the guy that chased it you in high school a chance. Like if I never dated this guy, like I don't know, I guess the regret came in. So I listened to my heart and dated the guy that chased me in high school. And I dated him and he ended up breaking my heart. But my soul knew that I needed my heart to get broken so it can open another layer of myself. And that was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, was listening to that choice, because I don't regret it at all, because that heartbreak right there, it was for me to find who I am, to open another layer of this love that I haven't that I abandoned. And it was the greatest listen to your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I would still be on a dirty job site if I didn't listen to my heart. And it's, listening to your heart is like I said, listening to the greater voice, that guidance that we are truly guided by.
Yes.
And the more we listen to that, it's what I call, so I teach there's 3 levels of integrity. There's the physical integrity, how we hold ourselves physically, how we show up physically, our connection to our body. That's physical integrity. Then the second level is emotional integrity. So that's living with an integrity of your heart and your emotions, being in tune with your emotions and being able to really cultivate a relationship with them. And then the third one is the most powerful, and that's living with integrity of the soul. And living in integrity of the soul is seeing how these things are unfolding for us karmically and allowing ourselves to live with an open heart, knowing that we are on a karmic journey, on a karmic path. And for example, it's you can just tell by connecting the dots going backwards, like what you just shared, that like all of these things happen in order for our greatest purpose, which is the evolution and growth and expansion of our soul. And the more we live in alignment with that, living from our heart, the more we allow the soul to grow, evolve, and expand.
Mm.
Yeah, so I love that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And then also you talked about healing, right? How does a man uh takes like the first action steps to healing? Like where does one start with if he doesn't know where to begin?
Mm. So I tend to look at relationships first and foremost because relationships tend to be the biggest pain point for most men.
Mhm.
Either they struggle to get one, they shut them out, or they're struggling in their current relationship. And why I believe that this is the biggest pain point for most men is because it's finally something that's meaningful enough to them that reminds them of their childhood and what they experienced as a little boy around love, around the love they did or didn't receive from mum or dad. A lot of and this shows up a lot of in attachment styles, the avoidant and anxious attachment style. Um, so the journey really begins at taking a look at your current results that you're getting or not getting, your frustrations, your challenges, what you keep experiencing in relationships, the pain that you experience around love. Really taking a good look at this because as children, we are wired for mother and father. And our mother and father tend to be our first representation and role models of the masculine and feminine energy. So when we look at the integration of the healthy masculine and feminine energy, we bring it back to mother and father wounds, the love that the little girl, little boy did or didn't receive. And we tend to see that the more we go back here, the more we realize there's no separation between what happened then, what you experienced as a little 4-year-old boy or girl, and what you decided in that moment to what you're experiencing now. So a lot of the work I do is people come to me for relationship stuff. They're lacking purpose, lacking they're struggling to get results in their business or their career or whatever it is. And I always bring it back to who did you decide to be when you were 4 or 5 years old? I'm bringing it back to who did you have to be in order to receive mum or dad's love?
Mm.
And normally, most of the times, especially men or little boys, they received either inconsistent love from mum and they develop this anxiousness towards love, this fear of abandonment, this fear of I can't like there's unpredictability when love's going to be around. And there's like this sense of betrayal that love's very easily taken away from me. And then that shows up in relationships. And then the father wound is typically a man, how he feels he has to perform in order to be accepted and approved by his dad. That shows up in business, that shows up in work. So these mother father wounds tend to really we experience, and as I said, we're wired for mother and father. Also, when we're children, we're egocentric. The world has to revolve around us for us to get our needs met. Because if we don't get our needs met, we die. Like we need caretakers as babies, as children. So along with that, and along with the egoic mind that needs to make meaning of things, because things need to make sense. Because if things don't make sense, then it's the brain can't comprehend it. So along with this, a little boy, a little girl experiences something at a young age, whether it's inconsistent love, whether it's dad was really harsh or had really high standards, whatever it was. We then make meaning of it because we're just meaning making machines as little children, and the world revolves around us, and our needs are not being met. So we make some core beliefs and decisions about ourselves in that period of time. And based on our identity, we then revolve an identity around that. Based on our identity, we'll do everything in our power to prove to ourselves that this is who we are. Because this allows our brain to have some sort of what would you say? Order and structure. Right? Otherwise the brain can't comprehend it. So this is how we create an identity around who we decided to be. So we find ways throughout our whole life to reaffirm back to us that this is who we are. We find ways in relationships to prove that love is unsafe or that this person's going to leave me. We find ways to prove that no matter how hard I try, I'm not good enough. And we have a whole lifetime of evidence to prove all of this is true. So every time we go back and we work at this core level, this is where I begin with men and women, and it's discovering who you were born to be, not taught to be.
Mm.
Discovering who you were at your core before you were shaped and painted with the same brush as everyone else. And the more we come back to this and the more we remove these layers that we've placed on ourselves based on our childhood, based on what we experience, based on schooling, based on all of this stuff, we start removing all of these layers of armor that we've placed on ourselves. And what we find within is this beautiful, perfect, golden essence that was already always there. That was abundant, that was more than worthy enough from the beginning. And to bring that into context, there's 1 in 400 trillion chance of us being born. And it takes 400,000 ancestors for you and me to be alive today. And if you zoom out enough, you'll see that we're just a giant rock flying through space. And we're just like little ants running around on this giant rock. It's like if that's not a miracle to you, I don't know what is. So the fact that you were born says enough. You're a miracle. And to feel that you're not worthy enough or good enough to be loved is based on a story. So it's very much, for me, is helping people come back to that, uncover who they truly are at their core, and then seeing themselves through the eyes of that, seeing themselves through the eyes of who they actually are at their core, and then being fully expressed as that. This is what I call the golden shadow. This is recognizing the abundance, unconditional love that's within all of us and being that in the world. Yeah.
Unconditional love, that is, what was that? The unconditional love that is, what did you say? The unconditional love, that of who we really are, because underneath all that, we are worthy. And why do men, I see a lot, struggle with worthiness? Is it because of the core wound of their relationship with their mother and father?
Typically, yeah. What I've found to be true, yes. And for my experience, yes. And on an unconscious level, I spent majority of my life trying to prove my worth to my dad, for him to just tell me that he's proud of me, to get the tick of approval that you have what it takes, like you're a man. How that looked was me. He always had really, really high standards for me, and I would always try and do my best to try and meet those standards. And when I couldn't meet those standards, I felt like I wasn't good enough or worthy enough for his approval. So unconsciously, majority of my life has been me trying to prove myself to other people, right? But actually, it's me trying to still prove myself to my dad. And when we really understand that, a lot of this, we feel that we're doing it for, ourselves, or for, we're doing this because we're creating impact. We're doing this because of our family. But deep down, it's when we're unconscious to it, it's typically because we're still trying to prove our worth to dad. In that sense, that's what was real for me anyway. One of the biggest pain points that I've really become aware of that a lot of men struggle with is the nice guy, is the people pleaser, is the man who doesn't lack that assertiveness within himself, the man that's out of touch with his anger and his inner warrior that can really stand for something. Men that people can't fully depend on emotionally because they're depending on other people emotionally because they don't have themselves. They don't have that pillar of emotional support within themselves. And this typically comes from the mother wound. When a boy receives inconsistent love and nurturing from his mother, which is his greatest source of love, he will become whoever he needs to be in order to receive that.
Mm.
He will shape himself and shape shift himself in order to be loved and approved by people. He will avoid conflict at all costs. He will lie because if he was to share his truth, it's not worthy enough to be loved. I made this core decision when I was a little boy that who I was at my core was not good enough to be loved, so I must be someone else. I must shapeshift myself. I must wear all these different masks. I must do everything in my power to keep my partner happy. Because if people are unhappy with me, that means they don't love me. And if I'm not loved, then that pokes my deepest wound of that I'm worthless. And this is very evident for like a lot of men that I work with, this deep core mother wound, because they've typically been raised by quite masculine driven women who haven't created that safe, loving, nurturing, consistent upbringing for them, that safe space for them as little boys. And until a man learns how to hold his own inner child and meet the needs of his own inner child, he'll forever be dependent on his partner emotionally. He'll most likely continue to seek approval, validation from the feminine, from women, majority of his life. And in doing so, lacking the ability to really show up as the provider and to keep his purpose in the center and make his purpose his absolute number one priority and mission in life. What men tend to do when they have this core wound of abandonment from the mother wound is they will make receiving love from the feminine their number one priority. So they step away from their true core as the masculine, which is living a life on purpose. And I believe this robs a lot of men from a deep level of fulfillment and happiness, and really being the providers for their family as well, because their purpose is not their main priority. It's to be accepted by their partner and to not upset anyone else, to keep everyone happy and to walk on eggshells so no one's going to be upset with them. Because if people are upset with them, then they're not loved, right? So this has been one of the most painful wounds that I've come across with a lot of the men that I work with all over the world. And it really shows up in relationships and really affects them in relationships. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what does purpose mean to you? And how can a man find his purpose?
Yeah, great question. I believe our purpose is actually, I'll bring it back to, as I was speaking about the essence of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
If we look out in nature, the nature is always just growing and evolving. The purpose of our soul is also growth and evolution and evolving. This is why we go through seasons just as nature does. Seasons are there for us to let go of the old, bring in the new. Seasons are there for us to experience challenge so we can grow and rise through those challenges and evolve. So I truly believe that at the soul level, the soul's purpose is growth, evolution, and expansion. And before the human, we are just energetic beings, souls, having a human experience. And recognizing that when we remove the human from it, everyone's purpose is growth, evolution, and expansion at a soul level. And the more that we come back to that and allow ourselves to grow, evolve, and expand beyond the human, getting out of the soul's way with the human, right? So allowing ourselves to actually, this is, listening to our heart, right? Is us getting out of our own way and allowing that growth, evolution, and expansion to unfold. So I believe our purpose is coming back to who we are at our soul essence, which was who we were born to be. It was who we were before we decided to be a certain way. I believe our purpose is uncovering all the layers of shit that we've placed on ourselves based on what we've experienced throughout our life. And I believe our purpose is uncovering and discovering all of those layers and discovering who we are at our absolute core. And then how we express that into into the world is then our mission. And our mission is how we bring our true soul's purpose to the world. And that's what I believe most people think their purpose is this thing outside of them. I believe our greatest purpose should be us. It should be the absolute growth and expansion of who we are, and then finding a way to express that into the world. And the more that I've done that, the more it's been evident that the more I bring the energy back into here, the more I uncover and discover all of the energetic limitations, the more I get out of my own way and allow my soul and my heart to lead and speak, the more my life's been a direct reflection of that, because our external world is a direct reflection of what's happening internally. And the more I've allowed myself to get out of my own way, yeah, like I said, it's been very evident, with the amount of money, with the opportunities, the experiences, the lifestyle, all of it, the relationships, the level of depth and connection within relationships. Not only that, but also the natural integration of the healthy masculine and feminine energy as well is already there. When we come back to who we are at our core, it's there. It's not trying to be more feminine or be more masculine. It's no, just come back to your core essence of who you really are and be that fully expressed, and you will naturally be balanced with these energies. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the healthy masculine and feminine. What does a healthy masculine mean to you?
Yeah. The healthy masculine is, actually, I'll explain the essence of masculine and feminine energy to begin with, because I got a very different approach to, I know how a lot of people explain this, and I bring it back down to the absolute, the energy itself. So the feminine energy is chaos energy, has no direction. It's fully expressed. The feminine energy is everything that you see and you feel. It's the movement. It's just everything that's moving and dancing in the moment. It's the fans running. It's the wind blowing in the trees. It's all of it. The masculine energy is the awareness of it. It's the containment of it. It's bringing structure and order to the chaos. So when we look at these pure energies as to what they are, the positive and negative, right? The hot and cold, the rock and the water, right? It's bringing the structure to the flow. It's bringing order to the chaos. It's bringing direction to the energy. So what I feel and believe healthy masculine looks and feels like is all of those traits of direction, of structure, of stillness, awareness, flow. Bringing structure and direction to flow, to bring flow to the energy. It's being the support. It's being the safety net. It's all of these things. It's having purpose. It's having vision. This is what I believe it really means to be in your healthy masculine. It is being that within yourself. As I said, your external world is a direct reflection of what's happening internally. So the more that we can be that safety, that support, that structure, that groundedness, that stillness within ourselves, we then create a space for there to be the flow of the feminine within ourselves as well. This is why men and women need a healthy balance of both of these energies. Because if you're too much in your feminine, you just become overly consumed by emotion and by feeling and by the chaos energy, and there's no structure and order to it. So it's bringing both of these in play. And for men, if you're too much in your masculine, too rigid, too structured, too much order, then there's no space for the energy to move and flow through the body of the feminine in our own body. And the more that we come back to that within ourselves, we create balance within ourselves. It therefore becomes a reflection of our external world. For example, a man, until he's created that safety within himself, that stillness, that grounding, and that direction within himself, where he can actually hold the flow of and chaos of energy and emotions that go on in his own body. Until he can hold that, he won't be able to hold it with a woman or a partner externally, because he needs to be able to hold it within himself first. And a big part of what I teach is really helping men cultivate that within themselves so they can be the pillar of support for the feminine. And what that looks like is, if you picture a waterfall is the relationship. Like, you see the flow of water going over the rock and this beautiful picture of the waterfall, right? But there can't be the waterfall if the structure isn't there. There can't be the direction of water if the safety and the grounding and the direction isn't there, right? So in order for there to be the waterfall, there must be the structure and there must also be the flow of the water. So in a healthy relationship, is a man needs to be that support, that structure, that safety, for there to be the flow of the feminine energy, not only in relationship but within himself first and foremost. But as I said, our external world, our relationships, are a reflection of the balance of these energies that we have within ourselves. So if that helps answer your question about what I believe it means to be in the healthy masculine, that's my take on it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love the take and the analogy of the structure and order, and for the feminine energy in chaos, because we do need those two together in order to, like you said, to flow. And I love that analogy of the river and the waterfall flowing. And
Yeah.
yeah, oh my gosh, this has been amazing. You're teaching me and educating me on more on this topic. And I love that you go into the relationship of, back when you were a child, of the mother wound and the father wound, and then how it affects us growing up. And now that we are here, and now we are here, what do you think being masculine will look like in the future, and how would that help the help our society?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, masculine or feminine. It's recognizing that everything that's happened in the past, who we decided to be at 4 or 5 years old, and then a whole lifetime of evidence to prove that, has led us up to this exact point right now. And who we are right now is a makeup of our past. So knowing that, we're living based on the current circumstances of our past. So therefore, if we are not aware and present of our past, we're just going to keep repeating the past. So this is why a lot of the work I do is really going back into the past, gaining so much awareness as to who you decided to be, how that's shown up for you, the thread of the connection between what happened then and what's happening now. And there'll be a direct correlation, right? And the more awareness we bring to this, the more awareness we bring to the present moment, because our life is legit just made up of a series of moments. This moment and this moment and this moment, and the decisions that we make in these moments. Our life is dictated by these decisions that we make moment to moment. And the decisions we make moment to moment are based on from what place we're making those decisions from. Are we making those decisions based on our past and who we have been? Or are we making decisions based on, I'm aware of all of that, but I'm going to live from my heart and from, listen to my gut, my inner knowing, and create and live from that place. Um, I believe the more that we come back to that, the more we live from that place, we live at a higher level of consciousness. We're no longer in fear. We're no longer running away from the past. We're now creating. We're now living in a state of gratitude. And the more we live from this place, the more we're creating more things to be grateful for. So I believe, for people to first and foremost clear up their own stuff so they can be the leaders of their own life and therefore create from a better place, create from a place of inspiration, of love, of gratitude, um, of joy and experience instead of creating from a place of fear. And what I mean by that is, creating from a place of fear is I don't feel worthy enough or good enough, so I got to prove my worth all the time. I got to make all this success. I got to have all these women around me, right? I got to, you know, um, that's running from the fear of your past. That's suppressing the emotions that are actually there based on what's happened in the past. So the more that we can look back at that, heal the past, the more leverage we have on our future moving forward based on the present moment, right? So I believe the more that we're living from that place, we're living from a place of truth. And the more we're living in a place of truth, the more we're just going to naturally raise the level of consciousness on this planet and the level of leadership on this planet as well, because people will be operating from a better place. People will be having better relationships, more thriving relationships, living from a place of truth and purpose and love and passion instead of fear, anger, jealousy, resentment, all of these emotions. Um, so I feel that it starts first and foremost with us as individuals and clearing up our own stuff so we can then be the leaders for ourselves, for the people around us, and then for the world moving forward as well. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Um, yeah, because with healing and letting go of the past is, for me, comes to mind is forgiveness. How does
Mm,
forgiveness play? Does forgiveness play a part in your healing process?
absolutely. Absolutely. Without forgiveness, you continue being a victim to your circumstances and trauma and things that you've experienced. And true forgiveness is forgiving the people that hurt you and the people that betrayed you, forgiving your parents, forgiving them for, what they experienced growing up and then how they projected that onto us. Forgiving society, forgiving how things have unfolded this far, within your own life, and then mostly forgiving yourself for the person that you decided to be and become based on you thought that you needed to be a certain way to be loved and accepted and approved. Forgiving yourself based on the decisions that you made, based on the information and level of consciousness that you were living at the time. And true healing and transformation really can't begin without forgiveness, especially forgiveness of self. So absolutely, it's a huge part of it. And I feel for someone to really start, navigating this work, if they're listening to this, is writing down, you know, what is it that you've blamed your mum and dad for? What is it that you're now going to forgive them for and forgive yourself for? I think that's a really powerful place to start.
I love that. And how do you forgive yourself? Because a lot of people have a hard time forgiving. Like, how do you forgive? Like, you can speak it verbally, but the energetic and the energy is still there. So how do what tools have you used or has helped you forgive yourself?
Mm. First of all, it's allowing yourself to feel what you didn't allow yourself to feel. It's allowing yourself to feel the pain that you've potentially carried based on who you decided to be and then the experiences you created from that. It's allowing yourself to actually process the emotions that are stored and stuck in the body. So you're no longer holding on to the energy of whatever it is. And then it's coming to true acceptance that, based on how your whole life has unfolded, it's coming to acceptance of I was doing my best. Everyone's doing their absolute best. And it's coming to acceptance. And the more we become clear on the past, the more we become aware of the past and, you know, what this little boy, this little girl experienced in childhood, the more we kind of start to begin to see the innocence and the purity of who we are at our core. And this is the deepest forgiveness that I've ever done is forgiving this little boy that felt like he had to be someone or something else in order to be loved. It's forgiving what he felt in that moment and allowing him to actually feel those emotions of sad, of loneliness, of this, how scared he felt because he felt like because he felt this way. And it's forgiving the situation of my parents and what they were experiencing, but most of all, um, yeah, forgiving the decision that I made at that age. And the more that I've just forgiven myself at the root cause, it's like it's the whole timeline moving forward through the rest of my life where I've betrayed myself. It's been like a constant wow, acceptance and forgiveness of wow, I see why I know why I did that now. And that's I get it. You know, it's just a little boy that was at play. And here's the thing, and until you've probably heard the quote, heal the boy and the man appears. Um, until we meet the needs of our inner child and heal that little boy that's within or that little girl that's within, they will be running the ship. They will be the one that's pressing all the buttons and controlling everything. So the more that we build a relationship with them and allow them to feel the acceptance and forgiveness and for them to know that they are perfect exactly as they are, then it's kind of like it the thread of events that then have played out in your past, you then are able to bring some more forgiveness and awareness and acceptance to everything that's unfolded based on who you decided to be. Yeah.
Ooh, you just gave me goosebumps listening you to talk about forgiveness there. That was you said it so beautifully and explained it so beautifully. I love that. Well, before we end our show here, what does Inspire Project? What is that?
Yeah. So Inspired Project is my mission. It's my company. It's the mission that I'm on to really help people integrate their healthy masculine and feminine energy, just as I shared, to
Mhm.
really become the leaders of their own life, create a life of freedom, to really step into their own power as the man or the woman. So yeah, I've been working with men and women all over the world, really helping them integrate this, cultivate thriving relationships, and really create a deep and meaningful life. And yeah, it's brings me a lot of joy in seeing the level of transformation that people experience, especially around their relationships, around relationship with themselves first and foremost, how they feel about themselves and they're by themselves, and then what they're then able to bring and create in the world because of the deep inner work that we get to go through with them, and the level of leadership, the the what happens when a woman really embodies her divine feminine essence and really you know integrates her healthy masculine and feminine, where she can go out there and be a boss and also be in her feminine, where men can go out there and be the leaders for in their relationship, in their business, in their purpose, in their own life. Is so incredible to witness what happens through this transformation. So um yeah, that's a bit about the work that I do, Inspired Project, and I have two programs, the Embodied Feminine and the Inspired Man program, and they're the only two things that I've been working through with people, and it's been absolutely phenomenal the level of growth and transformation. So yes, I'm excited to be able to share that on here as well.
Oh, I love the what you are doing, the work that you're doing for humanity. Anything else that you want to end with before we end this podcast?
Yeah, one big thing that comes up for me is trust, learning how to trust yourself at a deeper core level by being able to actually create space and create stillness and quietness to actually go in and listen what's happening within. And the more we can do that, the deeper level of trust that we build within ourselves on on a soul level. And it's trusting that you know, where you are right now, listening to this podcast is exactly where you're supposed to be. And it's, yeah, cultivating that more of that trust within yourself and within what you're doing and where you're going within your journey, because that's something that I've lacked along my journey is that just that trust that everything's always going to work out just as it always has. And and the most powerful journey we can go on is the one within. And if we don't go within, we go without. And it's having that deep level of trust to go within and cultivate that life for yourself, within yourself. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. You got to go within. If what was it? You got to go within. If you can't,
Go, yeah, yeah. You go within or you go without.
yeah, you go within or you go without. I love that. And where can people find you, Ryan?
Instagram and Facebook. So at Ryan Moresby-White. So I'm sure my tag will be in the show notes somewhere. You can go and check that out. I post heaps of value on social media, and yeah, feel free to message me, reach out if this resonated with you at all, and just connect. Yeah, I'm an open book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Ryan. That was a beautiful, you shared a lot of wisdom, knowledge, and there's so much that people can take from this conversation. So,
yeah.
whew, do your thing. You are amazing, and I cannot wait to watch more of your journey. So thank you,
Thank
Ryan.
you, thank you.